our council, I guess. Where she was right behind me. I think that's her. Okay. Kathy, what happened to Eileen?
She's on her way.
Okay. All right, it's now 6:02. I will bring this meeting of the Village Board of Trustees to order. We all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. And we will open this now for public comment.
On resolutions.
Yeah, I hope it would be on resolutions that we have, but I guess, you know, if anyone
The other
wants to...
public comment period's at the end of the meeting.
This is a work session. So there's no public.
Yeah, there's no public comment in the beginning, right?
I think we did both, but.
Oh, yeah, I think we
okay.
did both, but
So
I don't know what we
people
put
who
in
don't want to
there.
wait till after the resolutions,
Okay,
I mean, yeah.
okay, so, all right, let's then, we'll keep moving here. So then, Scott, I'll turn to you for mayoral appointments.
Resolved that the mayor appoints and requests a motion from the Board of Trustees to approve the following appointment as vice chair for the one-year term ending July 5, 2027 at 11:59 a.m. Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, Susan Stevenson.
I'll make the motion.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Second.
After discussion.
Just want to make the point that the appointment, actually the designation for the vice chair of the ARB should be done by the Board of Trustees, not by the mayor. It's in the code, and I can show you the code that specifies that. So it's just
Okay,
a
so-
clarification.
All right, but is anyone going to have a problem with Susan Stevenson being the
No,
vice chair? I
no,
think she
that
actually
is not-
already acted that in that capacity at
have-
the last meeting
I have
when
no
Quinn
problem with
Hopeful was
the-
not available.
I have no problem with the actual designation. It's just a point of clarification that the designation should come from the village board, and I rewrote the resolution how it should be read, if you, if
All
I
right, can
can
you hand it
read
to the
it.
council?
Well, it does say it in the code. We're back to whether we're gonna, this whole issue about whether there was no public referendum on when they adopted that law, which would.
Was there a public referendum?
No.
I don't
And
believe so.
Right, so whenever whenever you're a local law, you can supersede by local law, but you would have to have.
A mandatory.
Mandatory referendum if you're gonna impact the power of the mayor, for example. So that didn't happen. I thought we were just gonna move on because everybody agreed, but,
Well, 11631 says, "The village board shall designate the chairperson and vice chairperson of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation."
okay.
Yeah, we would say it doesn't abridge anyone's power because it's a joint, you know, there's the appointment, bringing some name forward, and then the board approves it. So it's
Right. But
not
it-
abridging anything. It just says who, among the board members, that the Board of Trustees would designate those positions, and the law doesn't say otherwise, so
Okay.
that would
I'm not
be-
going to argue, I'm just telling
So-
you what the law
Yeah.
is. And
So-
if you do impact the mayor's
So-
authority, which this arguably does, you need a mandatory referendum.
So I just want to, go ahead now.
But, I mean,
Everyone
it's-
wants
it's
Susan
in
to
the
be on
code.
there, though, so why can't we just vote on this? This is...
We can vote on it, we just have to make a motion to change the resolution to say that the Board of Trustees designates and requests
But it-
a motion for
But
the...
it says
board-
that the Board of Trustees is approving the following appointment.
Right, but the Board of Trustee also designates. That's what the
As
code
opposed to
says.
mayor appoints.
But under state law, the mayor has the power of appointment, and any local law that attempts to supersede that has to specifically do it in the enabling legislation, and then also is subject to a mandatory referendum.
I think what she's saying is the
But we don't need
code
to-
is not,
Maybe illegal.
is
To be honest with
illegal
you,
because we
yeah.
didn't do it by a mandatory referendum.
I'm not sure.
The code is not illegal.
Yeah.
The state law doesn't say that the mayor designates among the board members.
I
who's the
agree with
chair
you
and
on
the
that.
vice chair,
I agree with you
So
on
we're
that,
not superseding
yes.
anything.
Right.
That's possible, you're
The
correct.
code is still good because it doesn't supersede anything in the
Right.
state law that says designating the vice chair or
That's
the chair
arguably
is
correct.
being
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
usurped.
you
So
appointed the
we're
the
all doing-
members, so that is still part of the mayoral power. However, the board will designate whether they can be the chair or the vice chair. That's the difference.
I would just take the vote, make the amendment and take the vote if you want.
If we can make a motion to make the amendment.
What's the amendment?
So the amendment, I think, would say resolve the mayor, resolve, the board designates.
The
and
Board of
the
Trustees designates.
And
And
makes a
appoints.
motion to approve the following appointment.
Correct.
Okay, so
that's
as
fair.
amended, we need somebody to
As
move the
amended.
amendment. That'll be trustee
May I see
Simeoni's amendment.
May I see that?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Who's seconding it?
He's already amended it, but it's going to be your amendment.
Right.
Go ahead.
So I make the motion to amend the resolution to say the Board of Trustees designates and requests a motion for the Board of Trustees to approve the following appointment as vice chair for a one-year term ending July 5th, 2027 at 11:59 a.m. Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, Susan Stevenson. I make a motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Susan still is the vice chair.
Yes,
right.
of course.
Okay, two is me.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay, resolved that the mayor appoints and requests a motion for the Board of Trustees to approve the following appointment as vice chair for the one-year term ending July 5, 2027 at 11:59 a.m. Zoning Board of Appeals, Thomas Kempner.
I'll make a motion,
Discussion.
okay?
The code says the exact same thing. The village board shall designate the chairperson and vice chairperson of the Board of Appeals. So
I don't know if that's true. I have not looked at it, so.
here it is.
I
It
believe
does,
you.
yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't know.
All right, so let's have an
So-
amendment.
So we can, I make
But
a
you
motion.
still want Thomas Kempner, yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We're not,
We've
uh,
agreed to that.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're just doing sort of form here or something, but.
well, I think it's important that we follow the proper law. So I make the motion to amend the resolution to read, the Board of Trustees designates and requests a motion for the Board of Trustees to approve the following appointment as vice chair for one-year term ending July 5th, 2027 at 11:59 a.m. Zoning Board of Appeals, Thomas L. Kempner Jr. I make the motion. Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so Tom Kempner is there as well. All right, next.
Okay, that three is also made. Okay, the mayor appoints and requests a motion for the Board of Trustees to approve the following board appointments. Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, Nina Edwards Anchor, with the term ending the first Monday, July 2, 2029, at 11:59 a.m.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion, so this was realigning everyone on the board of the ARB so that they are staggered with 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year terms, so we would never have more than 2 people come up in 1 year. What is done here, and actually in the subsequent resolution, has the dates set so that, again, they are signed, linked up to have the proper staggering, as is the intention of the ARB.
So, right, we'd have 2 appointments up in
positions.
2029,
Right.
2 up in 2028, and 1 up in 2027.
Right, and it can be done,
We're going to
Just
do
by
it by
resolution?
resolution, yes,
Yes.
because it's in the code, and unless somebody were to challenge it,
yeah, I
think
thought the
it's
code
fine.
needed to be changed in order to allow that.
The code does
No.
say that, after this point, everybody gets a 3-year term, but if you're all in agreement and you're correcting a prior error that occurred by resolution, I think there's a good argument that you can do this. So,
All right, so let's just do that. So
Agree.
I made the
Yes.
motion, there was a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, the mayor appoints and the Board of Trustees approve the following board appointments. Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, Kathy Buxton, with the term ending the first Monday, July 5, 2027, at 11:59 a.m.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good.
Resolved that Mayor Manger appoints and requests a motion for the Board of Trustees to approve Noah Kent, approved to the position of laborer in the Highway Department at a salary of $49,703.02, effective Friday, July 24, 2026.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees approves the following additional appointment to the Southampton Village Committee with a term ending June 30, 2027. That is Sewer District Task Force, Robert Varadian.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we were going to have some updates and discussion items. The first one actually is on traffic, and we have Pat Lenahan from VHB as our traffic consultant here with us. Did you want to come forward and discuss any of this at this time? Sure, sure. We got you to come out here.
I don't mind coming out here. Usually I go the other way, and it's not quite as nice. Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. Pat Lenahan, VHB Engineering. Tonight I will be playing my colleague Ryan Winter. Ryan is in Detroit at a national transportation conference presenting some of his work.
Well, it is Motor City.
It is Motor City. So I will do my best. So coordinating with Ryan before I came over and before he left, based on the conditions out on either side of Hill Street, the neighborhood to the south, Lee Avenue, our pilot programs that we have run, and the significant amount of information that we've amassed, and some discussions with the community. As a group has assembled 5 options or alternatives for the treatment and assistance in the traffic conditions to the south of Hill Street, primarily Lee Avenue. And they range from simple striping, and I'll go through in a little bit of detail of each, to dead ending of the road. The striping option, for those familiar with it, it's been called locally the Shelter Island Ferry Driveway option, because there is a series of these treatments on the approach to the Shelter Island Ferry, where access to private properties and even commercial properties are boxed off in a don't block the box fashion to attempt to get folks to not block people's driveways. Personally, and in discussing it with Aaron, different colleague, with Ryan, based on my experience, these folks who are cutting through the neighborhood are very persistent and very motivated, and I don't think it would be effective. And I got the sense that the community feels the same way. The second option was a temporary or wheeled traffic signal, which would, during certain times of similar to what we did with the pilot program, but
On
it
Hill
would-
Street?
On the Lee Avenue approach to Hill Street, which would essentially direct people to only turn east at the north end of Lee Avenue. That particular operation, although it's available, it's legal for use only in work zones.
Okay.
The
So it cannot be used in this?
It cannot be used in this instance, so I believe that option is
Well,
off the
that
table.
eliminates that, yeah.
The third option, if you will, is a channelizing island, which would restrict the north end of Lee Avenue to right turns entering it from eastbound Hill Street and right turns exiting it from northbound Lee to eastbound Hill Street. You wouldn't be permitted to make a left turn out of Lee Avenue. That would, as with the pilot programs, result in some level of shift in traffic to Captain's Neck. But it is it would certainly help Lee Avenue. Could people still cheat and make a U-turn or go up McGee Street to some degree, they could. I'll let the chief talk about enforcement capabilities and manpower issues that has associated with it, if she'd like to chime in. But one of the key things, I think, with this option and the next option, were that channelizing island to be put in, it would go in with left turn restriction signing, which this board would legislate, and it would get recorded in Albany, and it would become a legal mechanism for the navigation programs to delist the route. So we hear a lot about people using these routes because the little screen on that card tells them to. And when this is in place, if Waze or Google Maps were updated, this route would drop off the map. And I think that's important, which is also part of the next alternative, making the northern section of Lee Avenue one-way south. So we talked about 75 feet south of Hill Street being one-way south, which would also result in the inability to come up from Ox Pasture to Hill Street and make a left or a right. Northbound would essentially be a dead end 75 feet south of Hill Street. And that also would result in the northbound Lee to westbound Hill Street route dropping off the navigation maps because it would be an illegal route. And at that point, it would get delisted. But again, it would have the effect of shifting some folks to the next street further east.
So what's the main difference between the last two there?
With the first one, with the channelizing island, and I may have misspoke, I think we're talking just about the northbound right channelization, would allow the folks who live there
To go east into the village.
to access Lee and their homes and point south
I see, yeah.
and leave to the east. With the one-way segment,
No one would ever be allowed out that way.
you wouldn't be allowed,
You'd be allowed in.
you would, let me,
You'd be allowed in only, but
you would
not
be
out
allowed in,
into
but
the
if you lived to the south of that.
You'd have to go all
you'd
the
have
way
to
back
go
to
all-
Ox
You'd have to
Pasture.
go to Ox Pasture or another available route.
Well, that's the only other
So-
available route, yeah.
Is the
And-
point at which the one-way takes over, is that an intersection? In other words, if somebody's coming north and they all of a sudden go, oh, Jesus, it's one-way, can they make a right turn? Is there a road there that they can get off on? Or are they in the middle of nowhere? Are they in the middle of the street?
The appropriate treatment would be to pinch the road down, but also provide some sort of geometry where a northbound vehicle
So
could
there's
make
not a road there.
could
It's
make a
just-
U-turn.
It just stops.
So
Yeah.
there is a
There's Hidden
potential,
Creek.
there's a potential right-of-way problem to make a turnaround large enough for a vehicle to navigate reasonably. And the last option that was discussed was dead-ending Lee Avenue, either at the Hill Street end or the Ox Pasture end on the south,
So everyone would have to go in and out on Hill Street.
or Ox
Or
Pasture,
Ox-
depending on which end you
Right,
cut
right,
off.
understood,
You would cut off one end or the other,
Yeah.
and that has ramifications certainly
Oh, yeah.
for emergency services
Yeah.
and other issues where I think it's problematic. So, I think option 3, which is the channelizing island, and option 4, which is the partial one-way, are the ones that may make sense.
Can you just talk a little bit about how VHB developed this as the universe of options, how these considerations or options came about in the work that you did?
Well, some of them have been emulated as parts of the pilot programs, right? The restriction of the left turns. You know, we have restriction of right turns on the other side. We've also got weight restrictions So looking at the layout of the roadways, and, you know, and Ryan was involved in speaking to the community, of course, these are the things that came out that seemed worthy of consideration. I think several of them fall off the table when held against reasonableness. And these two are the ones I think that the board may wish to consider and take public comment on, and I suppose that's why we're here tonight.
And on the cross-hatching idea, the thought is that people would ignore it. Was there any analysis of the ticket price of that, or, you know, would they be dissuaded if they were ticketed from taking those routes? And-
You're referring to the don't block the driveway
Yes.
type of thing?
Yeah,
That would theoretically solve one concern of the neighborhood, which is the ability to get in and out of their driveways and the public safety concerns that go with that. It wouldn't lower the traffic level on Lee Avenue. It would make the line longer.
so
And
even if people were ticketed, they wouldn't stop taking that route
these
as
people,
much,
you know,
but,
if
yeah.
if there's one thing we've learned, I think, is these people are highly motivated.
They want to get home.
So,
And can any of these be done together, or is it all separate options?
well, you know, the channelizing island, for instance, you could do that at multiple locations. You could do a partial one-way on Lee Avenue and a channelizing island on Captain's Neck. And we have a significant amount of traffic volume traffic volume data that we collected with and without the pilot program last year, that we could look at and see, in a sense, what kind of redistribution of traffic we're looking at, and, you know, how much strain would we put on First Neck if this were to happen. And, you know, because we don't just have people coming off of Hill Street. We've also got people coming up from the south that are looking to get on Hill Street at the westernmost point possible to avoid Hill Street. They're still coming up, and they have to be accommodated.
Yeah. I mean, all those contractors that work on Meadow Lane, they're coming up Halsey Neck, and then they're turning on to get onto Captain's or Lee Avenue, yeah.
I think it was something like 2/3 of the traffic that was coming out on what I'm going to call the three roads, Lee, Corrigan, and, Captain's Neck and Halsey Neck, were not coming across Ox Pasture, but were coming up Halsey Neck or First Neck from local
Yeah.
jobs and then migrating. Well, there was data that we saw last year.
I don't have the numbers with me, but we do have a good snapshot of what those numbers are.
Although when Hill Street is backed up to First Neck, everybody that's behind those cars, they just turn on First Neck and then take Ox Pasture. I mean, we've seen that
So,
on a regular basis.
so just, talking about theoretical, if we made it impossible to make a left out of Lee Avenue, we made it impossible to make a left out of Captain's Neck. There's no reason for those people to turn down,
Correct.
which is, I think, it's not going to improve Hill Street. There's going to be more people on that section of Hill Street than there are today. But,
It may dissuade
the question
people-
is that more appropriate than where they are now?
Yeah, it may dissuade people from going on Hill Street and maybe staying on County Road 39, or maybe they'll start taking Moses Lane.
Yeah.
Chief, do you want to
Again.
say anything about this?
I can be done. I don't want to hog the mic.
No, I think it would be good to hear from the chief, because obviously she's...
I don't want to talk about the enforcement.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. That's why the chief is here.
However, your conclusion would be that if we do this on Lee Avenue, we probably have to also do it on Captain's Neck, right? We cannot just do it on
I
one
saw
street.
I saw a pretty good crowd on Captain's Neck today,
Yeah.
on my way here. Yeah.
How you doing? So, if I'm understanding correctly, is this something that, what was just presented to us, is this going to be a pilot, or is this something that the board is going to take under consideration to do permanently? I mean, where do we go from this presentation?
Well, anything I think we would have to do on a trial basis, because I don't want to make permanent changes now and then say, this doesn't work, so we got to make a whole permanent change again. Because
Okay.
we have to do local laws in order to enact this, and we have to send them up to Albany, so it's recorded in Albany.
Okay.
It would be easier to do, maybe an extended pilot period, just to see what the effect is.
Okay.
Because, again, I think we know a little bit from last year what the effect will be, but maybe this channelizing will have a slightly different effect.
And there are products available where you can put in channelizing on a temporary basis, and if for some reason, and then after the pilot program, if you want to call it, you're in favor of a permanent feature or remove it.
And the only problem, though, with making it temporary, it will not drop off of Waze and Google, so people will still
is
be
correct.
taking that route unless there's a way of doing that.
So I've been in touch with Waze, and the last pilot program we had, I informed them of what was the last one we did last summer with the no left turns out of Lee Avenue and Captain's Neck. And they were going to put that on the route, that you couldn't make the left turn. So if we were to do another pilot, that's easy.
Yeah, the chief has built up a relationship with someone at
Yeah.
Google,
And
actually.
that
That's
will
a secret.
Yeah.
And that
these
will
are easy.
resolve also the
We know there was
people,
someone who was trying to,
that also will not eliminate, but reduce the traffic on Lee Avenue, so you're going to have less problems with the U-turns and everything else.
Right. Hopefully. So I just want to start out by saying that whatever the board and the engineer thinks is the best thing to move forward, we'll support. We'll help implement, we'll support. But this topic of traffic does weigh very heavily on me and on the police department and this community. So I just want to say a few things, and just bear with me. I have 5 minutes, right, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. So
the chief, yeah.
I just want to, I had to write it down and kind of stay on script, and I didn't want to go off script because that might go bad. So let me just focus on this. So I understand everyone's frustration. The police department hears you. We experience the same traffic conditions every day, whether we're navigating it while we're working or we're driving to and from work. I recognize the congestion and the impact that it has on everyone's quality of life, and we take that to heart. We really do. It's concerning to me, the amount of emails and phone calls I get from people begging to do something, and it is, I take it to heart. I take it personally, and I want to help fix it. So it is important, though, that we're honest about what we're facing here. This is not simply a village traffic problem. I think we all know that. It's a regional transportation problem. The expectation that this board or police department is going to solve the traffic problem in the village is unrealistic, and I think everyone in this room and out in the community knows that. The volume of vehicles that are traveling to and from the East End has overwhelmed our roadway system that was never designed to accommodate this amount of traffic. The navigation apps like Google Maps and Waze redirects hundreds of vehicles onto our streets every day, onto our residential streets every day, to avoid 39, to avoid Hill Street, to avoid Montauk Highway. These routing decisions are made by computer algorithms, not the Village of Southampton. It's really important to stress that. Our department remains committed to traffic enforcement. To date, we've issued over 3,000 tickets, which we're on par to pass what we did last year, which was over 6,000. But I want the residents to understand the realities of policing in a small department. We have 28 sworn members, myself included. 3, maybe 4 officers at a time are working. Every officer that is assigned to traffic enforcement is also responsible for responding to emergencies and handling daily calls for service. At any moment, an officer may be dispatched to a domestic violence incident, a cardiac arrest, a serious motor vehicle crash, a subject threatening another with a knife. We had 3 or 4 of those last week. Or another life-threatening emergency. When those calls happen, enforcement stops. Responding to calls for service is always a priority. We conduct directed enforcement in areas generating the greatest number of complaints. 63% of our traffic stops and our enforcement are on the western end of Hill Street. We monitor traffic patterns, deploy officers when resources allow, and issue summonses for violations of the vehicle and traffic law. But no police department, particularly one of our size, is going to be able to post officers on every residential street during heavy traffic. It's just not possible. The truth is, no amount of enforcement additional stop signs, speed humps, or localized restrictions will solve the problem. We cannot enforce our way out of a traffic volume issue this big. Every municipality, every police department on the East End is facing the same challenge. We talk about it at all of our East End Chiefs meetings. It's everywhere. It's not unique to this village. It is a result of regional traffic patterns, an increase in seasonal demand, and the technology directing vehicle through residential roads throughout residential neighborhoods across the East End. We see it in Hampton Bays, North Sea, Watermill, everywhere. We owe our residents honesty. Promising that one road closure, one traffic pattern change, or one enforcement initiative will solve this problem would create expectations we simply can't meet. Unless we address the volume of vehicles coming to and from the East End, traffic will continue to spill from one neighbor to another and shift the problem from one road to another. Meaningful improvement is going to require a coordinated regional effort involving our neighboring municipalities, Suffolk County, New York State, transportation planners and engineers, and the agencies responsible for our major roadways. Our department will continue to do everything in our authority to keep our roads safe. We'll continue targeted enforcement. We'll respond to residents' concerns as best as we can, and we will assist in evaluating reasonable traffic calming measures and work with our partners and engineers. Our board has done that. Our board has been working with the county and state officials, and they'll continue to do that. The PD is going to support anything recommended by our consultants and agreed upon by the board. It will cost some money, I'm sure, to implement, but I want to just direct everybody and ask yourself, what is the county doing? I'll tell you what the county has done. In 2023, the prior county executive was here. County-led study will seek solutions to County Road 39. Me and Jimmy Kiernan was there. Mayor was there. Town Supervisor Jay Schneiderman was there. Fall of 2024, Suffolk County DPW led a public information meeting at Southampton High School. Mayor was there. Former Trustee Zanatti was there. Trustee Simeone was there. I didn't see many village residents there. It might have been at a bad time of year. However, it's 2006. 3.5 years later, what is the county doing? They have forgotten about the East End. I'll tell you what they're doing. And all of you should go to this. The county is having a public information meeting on July 30th at the town of Southampton to replace the bridge at County Road 80, Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays in the summer of 2029, and it's going to take 2 years. It's the bridge that is the overpass of the LIRR, Long Island Railroad. And they're going to take it off and build a new bridge and passage to Montauk Highway. If nobody in this room thinks it's going to impact Southampton Village, you are sadly mistaken. Everybody should be at that meeting. It's at 6 p.m., July 30th at Town Hall. That is, whatever we do here, whatever moving forward pilot program the board does, traffic patterns, whatever, that is going to negatively impact everything. So, and the other thing that you have to consider too, please talk to the fire chiefs before we do anything, because it is in the New York State Fire Code that you have to speak with a fire official, whether it's a fire marshal or fire chief, just to make sure all their apparatuses can fit and they can respond accordingly. So that's all I have to say. If anyone has any questions from the board, I'll gladly take them.
Anyone have questions for the chief?
Yes, Chief, is that by Canoe Place?
It's right, if you're going east, and if you pass Carvel and you're going east, that bridge right before Old Riverhead Road before Canoe Place.
And is it a done deal? I mean, is it?
Well, I think they're having the public information hearing to hear from residents.
Protest.
That's not the
Yes.
bridge that part of it fell down this
No.
past.
No, no, that's another bridge. It's another bridge.
Are they putting a temporary bridge in the meantime?
No, they're rerouting traffic down Argonne Road by the high school and middle school. And they're going to reroute it down Ponquag to Argonne
It's,
Road,
in Hampton
up to
Bays.
Canoe Place, at the blinking light.
Okay, good. Anyone really, a question for the chief?
I guess in terms of enforcement,
Mhm.
options that were discussed, do you have any opinion about which would be easier or harder to enforce,
So
or
I-
changing behavior? How difficult is that with the
So I think
channeling?
if we put the channel, if we go forward with the channelizing, it's really not, it would be enforceable if someone really made an effort to go out of their way and make a left out of there. You know, there would have to be signage that says right turn only, so if someone did try to make a left and go over the, whatever is going to be put there, they would get a ticket for it. But I think that even when you say the dead end 75 feet in, is that 75 feet in from Hill Street? The one way,
If
yes,
you
that's
were-
what I meant.
I'm sorry.
If you were going north, if you were going
Can you stand up, because
northbound,
otherwise it's not getting
if
on
you're going
the
northbound
video.
on Lee Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
75 feet before you get to Hill Street, there'd be an island that came in that travel lane
Okay.
to stop you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so, yeah, I got it. So that would be a sign that says one way, and that would be enforceable. If, you know, we would have to, during the pilot, we're going to have to monitor that. We can't enforce it, but if it did become permanent, there would have to be the proper signage to go up, and that would be enforceable, and we would have to monitor that for a little bit until people understood the new traffic pattern.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Okay.
So I think that's a good point, though, that we definitely have to involve the fire department, because the chiefs have reached out to me before and say, look, Mayor, can you please make sure we're informed about what changes you may be making before you go ahead and do it. So we will do that, but I guess the question is here, should we go forward and try and do something with this as a pilot again? Maybe the channelizing, since that's different, slightly different than what we've done previously, or what is the consensus of the board here? Sorry. Chief.
I just forgot to mention that whatever we do, DPW has to be intricately involved in this.
Of course.
You know, and when you say there's temporary stuff that can be put up, right? He needs to order that. We
Right.
can't put barrels and cones because people are
Right.
going to drive through them. So if we're going to do it, we got to get the right stuff to do it right. So
Well, I would have Steve Phillips
Okay.
speak to Pat Lenahan here.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. If we're going to do that. But again, I'd like to hear from members of the board what their thoughts on this are.
I think there needs to be a more expansive public hearing on this issue.
Yeah, well, that's fine, we can do that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think there has been discussion with a number of people here in this room, but I think this is the first time the community's hearing this, and as I think our engineer said, this will have the predictable result of shifting traffic. I think one of the things we heard in some of the discussions was that the trials, the pilot programs that have gone on before, maybe didn't go on long enough for habits to change with the right communication. So there's some question as to whether those results, which were not generally favorable to this sort of thing, but were they really reliable results? So that's, I think, a consideration too, that if we were to do a pilot program, we'd want to do it for a more extended period of time to let the habits and the signage take effect, so that we could get maybe a more accurate read as to whether any changes were going to have an impact. Trustee Simeoni and I today met with a couple of the council people from the town to learn a little bit more about what the town has been doing and thinking for the regional transportation issues that the chief alluded to. And of course, there's no great or easy answers. It comes down to money. Some of them take longer than others. But my opinion overall on this, until we find a way to remove at least a couple thousand, maybe up to 5,000 vehicles a day from coming across the canal, which to me was not going to be done with housing, it's going to be done with public transportation, trains and buses, and a carpool culture that we need to help create. All we're going to do is shift burdens from one place to another, which isn't very satisfying to me intellectually, even though I know that the need is very urgent in certain places. So trying to balance those long-term sustainable solutions in addressing the volume issue versus giving relief where there's acute problems.
Trustee Bernstein?
Yeah, I think we have to do something urgently, but we should hear from the impacted communities as to what they think would be the best approach and what their experience is, and so we can make the most informed decision. And so we should put that on the calendar right away so that we can hear from interested parties about what they think is best and then make a decision and move forward with one or more of these?
Yeah, trustee Simeoni?
I think we've been talking about it for over a year now. I mean, it's nothing new. We've been saying the same things from last year. We already did a pilot, which was very similar to what we're proposing right now. So I'm ready to move forward. I also think, however, that if we do it for Lee Avenue, we should consider doing it for Captain Neck as well, because they will be affected, and then see how that moves on and keep on seeing, what the results are if we have to take any other steps. And of course, it should be a pilot for a longer period of time, so we can also see how it really affects affects the village, and also give commuters a chance to really understand what the restrictions are, so they don't keep on trying to get on Lee Avenue regardless, or Captain's Neck. So it's probably a good idea to have another public hearing, but it should be very soon, so we can get more feedback. But I think we are ready to make a decision at this point.
Trustee Simeoni, we did have a pilot program, but the results were very mixed and generally somewhat negative because of the impacts to the rest of the village. That's why it was discontinued. So unless we're coming back with some new information or theories about how a longer pilot might change behaviors and discourage people from even coming through the village or anywhere south of the highway, to me, the pilot program we've had would not support any of these. I'm willing to consider them more with more public input. But the pilot program we ran already, the only fault you can say to it was whether it didn't go long enough to really kick in.
It definitely did not go long enough. There was not enough signage. People still kept on going as if they felt they could break the law and make that right-hand turn, left-hand turn regardless. So I think we need to make sure that the public is informed, that the motorists are informed, that the signage is up there, and given enough time to see what the effects really are. I mean, we have to do something. We can't just do anything. It's time to take some action, make the changes, see how it goes. To not do anything, it just means giving up.
All right, well, if we don't want to wait till the next meeting, which is a ways off, we could try and do this in the first week in August, if people think that's, because we need to make sure we get enough people aware of the meeting.
Right, that also give time for DPW to find out what they need in order to make
Right. You would have to spec out, Pat, I'm speaking to you, sorry. You'd have to spec out exactly what would be required, so that, again, DPW can look into getting those
And we'll see
components
what
and
the
how long it
timeframe
would take
is.
and all that kind of stuff, because obviously, we would need to order something as
Yeah,
the chief said, we don't want to just put barrels out again in cones.
Right, yes. But it wouldn't take long at all to put together a concept and a list of materials.
All right, so what do you think of having a special traffic meeting in the beginning of August?
I agree with trustees Coburn and Bernstein that we need to get the impact of the committees. I recall from the pilot program, with all due respect to the people from Lee and Captain's Neck, they're in the audience, there's nobody from Halsey Neck here, and they were almost at fisticuffs at one of the meetings saying that they were getting screwed. Somebody's is getting screwed, and right now you guys are getting screwed. I understand that. Lee Avenue's terrible. But if you put these barriers on Lee and Captain's, Halsey Neck is going to be a parking lot, just like your street is now. I get it. I'm not trying to say that it's better one way or the other, but I think it's presumptuous of us to sit up here and make a decision without having input from the people in Halsey Neck.
Well, no, that's,
Did we get an invitation?
okay, all right.
Also, Halsey Neck is a designated emergency.
Okay,
It's
okay.
3 times
All right,
wide.
we can't have people commenting really from the audience.
We could do a resolution setting a special meeting right now if you want.
I think the best thing to do is have it and make sure it's well advertised, so we get as many people to show up as possible. And from other parts of the village. I mean, no one ever comes from the east part of the village. I mean, I'm sure they're experiencing the influx of cars coming in at the east side as well. I know that Trustee Coburn said we should try and have a committee, a traffic committee that is based on people
Representative,
throughout
yes.
the whole village and not just
I
one.
already have some names.
section.
I mean, definitely we should have representation from different parts of the village in this traffic committee, so we can get a full picture and a report from everyone.
So what if we tried to schedule a meeting for August 5th? It's a
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Usually this room is available on Wednesdays. I know that. There's no other boards that conflict on a
that's fine.
Wednesday. And that's basically 2 weeks from now.
At what time?
Would we do it also in the evening at 5 or 6 o'clock?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
So the resolution would say, resolve the Board of Trustees shall hold a special public information meeting and discussion regarding traffic in the village of Southampton on Wednesday, August 5th, 2026 at
6 PM.
6 p.m.
Does VHB have materials that can be posted or included in sort of a packet for that meeting, a presentation, or?
Could in just a couple of days.
Okay.
Okay. So somebody needs to make that motion?
Okay, I'll make the motion. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to have another meeting on this. The first,
You're doing that here, right?
yes,
All right, perfect.
that means you have to be here.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
And then at that time, can we also have all the information about what would have to be ordered in terms of materials to set this up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'd even like to talk to
Yeah,
Pat sooner
before,
about that.
yes.
Yeah,
So that we're ready to
Yeah.
make a move.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get Ryan back on Thursday.
Okay.
We can be right on it.
Okay, all right. Very good.
I just want to make a comment. This is a difficult situation. It's a difficult issue. The comments that the residents of Halsey Neck and other streets affected by any change we make could be here tonight, I just got to say it's unfair. They had no idea that these issues were going to be presented. It's not in the packet. They weren't invited or included to the prior meetings that were held to discuss this. And this is part of the responsibility of this board, is to make sure everyone has an equal chance to see what's being considered that could affect them. And they haven't yet, so we need to give them that chance.
Wasn't in your email yesterday? You said your priorities and we'll talk about
That goes out to that's not a public notice, Frank. It's not a public notice. There needs to be a public.
Okay, we can't have again, the discussions from the audience. I'm sorry. But we put this on the calendar, so I invite everyone to come back and we'll hear from, again, Pat or Ryan and the chief again, and we'll figure out what we need to do in terms of purchasing any equipment that could be installed temporarily on a trial basis to see what the effect will be. All right? Now, I understand the second discussion item, actually, you wanted to table?
No, well,
Is that correct?
I wanted to put this on here. It seemed like we had, at our last meeting, two sort of competing resolutions for how to go about monitoring or assessing and evaluating the performance or potential conflicts for the councils to our land use boards. And I just wanted to throw out whether we, in the absence of, or before we talk about any resolutions, do we want to just discuss different approaches for the people who were advocating different approaches to evaluation? In summary, one was to basically have a self-reporting on conflicts and input from the boards, the land use boards themselves, to trigger sort of a review. And the other one, Willa, which you may be able to articulate better, was a little more sort of formalized with more of the burden or the initiative coming from this board. Is that a fair
I think
initial
there
summary?
is I have a resolution on the agenda that addresses how to deal with potential conflicts. But my resolution was introduced with the idea of having the board remain responsible for seeing that there are no conflicts of interest or the appearance of conflicts, maintaining that responsibility, and, you know, if there were written complaints, that would be spoken of either in executive session or in an actual meeting of the Board of Trustees, so that we could all be aware of that, and that before we're asked to vote on the important position of lawyer to the land use or other boards like the ethics board, that we are made aware if there are any potential of the appearance of conflicts or actual conflicts of interest, or if there's any undue influence, that either any member of the board or a member of this trustee board or the mayor could bring that to our attention, and it would be discussed, because I think it's an ongoing problem or potential problem at least, and it's something that we have to monitor, because the land use boards in this village make important decisions every day that affect everyone in the village. So we have to keep that process open and fair. And at the moment, I don't think we have sufficient safeguards in place. So that was what was discussed. But we had the
as
competing.
lawyers, there obviously will act, you're an attorney under, a code of ethics and a code that lawyers follow when they're conducting legal, business on behalf of their client, in this case, the land use board. So, I think we have to have faith in the attorneys that we have working on behalf of the village. If there's an attorney that you think is doing something wrong or nefarious, or that there's a problem, I hope you would bring that to my attention. But I have not heard anyone complain about any conduct of any of the attorneys that we currently have working on behalf of the land use boards.
Well, I was a person who complained about some of the conduct when I was on the land use board, and that was public record. But in our last meeting, Mayor Manger, you did introduce the idea that you met with the village attorney to discuss a potential conflict of interest and with the attorney in private, whereas I think that those discussions should be with the entire board at least, because we're being asked to approve an attorney to a board who must be able to give unbiased advice, not have any conflicts of interest, and if that arises, we should be able to discuss that before approving those people. So we did talk about appointment powers, but we also have approval power, and without being privy to that information, we don't have a hope of making sure that that process is fair of those appointments. So I think since it's a collaborative effort, we should have that information. It shouldn't be just discussed in private. That was my point.
Okay. Again, I still think that the power of appointment rests with the mayor. So, I have to put a name forward, and then the board gets to concur or not concur.
Right, but if the information is not shared, if people...
There was no information withheld. There's no, again...
Well, you were concerned about a potential conflict of interest and determined that, but not amongst the board members. I think that the board members need to be privy to that information, and whether it's in an executive session or it's in a full session, that should be vetted, because the public has to have faith that the determinations of those boards are guided by absolutely unbiased, unconflicted advice, and that's something that can change over time, and we can't just rely on people to come forward. Or if there's an issue, I just would personally think that it needs to be brought to everyone's attention, at least the board members who have to vote. I would like to not have the burden of looking into that. If it's brought to your attention or if it's brought to the village attorney's attention, it's everyone's obligation to vote with that information. That was the point of my resolution.
Okay, but the resolution didn't exactly read like that. But anyway, let's move on. Was there anything else that Roy wanted to say? Okay. So, correspondence to the board.
We have a correspondence from Jay Fitzpatrick, who suggests limiting contractors, landscapers, and other services to just a 5-day work week, however, with an earlier start and a later finish to make up for the lost hours, and enumerates some benefits to that. We have correspondence from Ken Weinstein, who suggests that perhaps Southampton Hospital could serve as a shuttle service from the Stony Brook University campus to ease traffic issues and parking issues there. Outlined some drainage issues that became apparent on the July 4th storm, and asks about inventories, things like that. Also addressing tree removal and some of the tree losses during the storm, and asks if we maintain an inventory of the trees, and we do investigations or inspections for diseased trees, and the prospect of possibly taking that up.
Yeah,
and that's all we have.
I would just add that in response to that we do have a tree committee, and Steve Phillips, who sits on that committee, is in touch with Pete Grealish, and they do periodically go out and look at trees, and they actually have a list of trees that was generated from the storm on the 4th of July. So they have quite a few trees that are going to be looked at in the next week or two, and make a determination whether they should be removed, trimmed, or what have you. So I just want to say that the village definitely is looking into, there are trees that still need to be removed that have been found and probably will be found to not be, as strong as they were now that they've been decimated by the storm we had.
Sir?
Sir, Pat, stand up.
If the board is convinced that we're not going to circle back to the traffic,
Yeah,
I can
You-
take my leave and
you're dismissed. Thank you, Pat.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Anyway, all right, so that was it on correspondence to the board,
correspondence.
so we'll move to resolutions.
Number one, resolve the claims for the warrant dated July 21st, 2026, totaling $1,038,834.54. Warrant number A-11, general, $130,091.35. Warrant number H-5, capital, and $16,059.71. Warrant A-12, payable, are audited and approved. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
And a quick comment, just for some color.
Yeah.
This, the $1,038,000 includes about roughly half of that is an employee health monthly, bi-monthly employee health contribution for all village health employees covered by our health plans. About $350,000 of that was a disbursement to our asset managers to reallocate assets to a certain financial advisor. And about $53,000, and I think there's some other ones, but was to a tree service that I think we contracted for some of the emergency work, which we're going to see more of.
That's correct. We had to bring in outside help to remove the damaged trees because, again, our 2 tree trimmers were overwhelmed.
And of the $130,000 for the capital warrant, a little less than half of that is actually following through on a resolution from earlier this spring, I think, for replacing the AEDs in our ambulances. I think that's what the Zoll medical expense is, so.
The defibrillators.
Yeah, the
Yep,
defibrillators.
correct.
Yep.
That's correct.
So just wanted to give that color.
Thank you. So we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 2, resolve the reading of the minutes for the July 9th, 2026 Board of Trustees meeting is dispensed, accepted as filed by the village clerk, hereby ratified and approved. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves Enivaldo Jimenez as a probationary member to the Southampton Village Fire Department, Hook and Ladder Company 1, effective July 21st, 2026. I make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the current postage equipment lease for the police department has expired and is due for renewal, and whereas the village has 3 other leases for postage equipment in different departments in the village, and whereas the village desires to sign a shorter renewal of this lease so that all of the postage equipment leases expire together in the fall of 2029. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor to execute a 36-month lease agreement with Pitney Bowes at a monthly cost of $172.34, subject to review and approval by the village attorney. I'll make the motion.
Second.
On discussion?
No, second.
Are you, Chief, this is for you, right, Chief? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Number 5, resolve the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Southampton hereby authorize the mayor or his designee to submit a grant application seeking reimbursement of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation 2026 Water Quality Improvement Program, seeking funds in the amount of $10 million with a required match of 25% thereof in support of the Southampton Village Sewer System Project. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
I should have made a comment. This is, we haven't committed to any expenditures on the project. We
No, this
know
is
that any avenue we go down is going to be well in excess of $10 million. Some of that is going to be continued pre-planning and engineering work before a single shovel hits the ground. So this is a program that helps fund some of that we want to take advantage of on behalf of village residents.
And the due date for this grant is the end of this month, so we have to take action today as the last meeting of the month.
Thank you. Sorry.
So we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Number
Sorry.
6, I think, can be marked off, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Sorry.
I was gonna actually say
All right,
whether
so
we should
I'll
be
make a
reading
motion
that.
that resolution 6 be removed or dropped or tabled?
Marked off the calendar.
I'll
Marked off
second
the
that.
calendar? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Number 7, whereas the board recognizes that freedom of information law requests, when submitted to a government agency, become public records themselves, and whereas the processing of an individual FOIL request involves the allocation of government employee time and resources, including the cost of conducting document searches, coordinating with various village departments, and considering redactions and compliance issues with any attendant overtime costs. And whereas the board recognizes that allowing members of the public to view the subject matter, status, and documents produced in response to other people's FOIL requests, subject to any applicable exemptions or redactions for protecting privacy and sensitive, personally identifiable information, ongoing law enforcement investigations, or confidential medical files, would save government resources, reduce the need for answering redundant requests, and serve the public. And whereas the Village of Southampton answers FOIL requests using Next Request, a web-based public records and freedom of information law management software available on the village website that aids in receiving, routing, tracking, and publicly releasing requested documents under FOIL, and whereas anyone can request to see an agency's FOIL logs or correspondence and documents related to prior requests, therefore, be it resolved that henceforth, Next Request settings will be changed to allow the public to see all others' FOIL requests, along with documents produced in response to those requests, and all FOIL requests submitted by means other than electronic will also be so treated and open to the public with any redactions allowed by law.
Make the motion.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to adopt that, opening the Next Request.
Second?
Discussion. I just want to, one part here, I'm not sure we can really say that it would save government resources and reduce the need for answering redundant requests and serve the public, because actually the clerk is not able to just give a FOIL request that had been made by an individual to another individual. They actually have to reproduce the document separately, meaning you can't just forward say, well, this was done, this is the answer, here you go. They all have to be done individually. So I don't know if it would really save the government resources and reduce the need for answering redundant requests, because we would actually still have to answer those redundant requests.
Wouldn't the argument be that we might get fewer requests because
Right.
if the information is available in the first place, that people might see it and simply not make their request?
Right.
I might withdraw my request if I were asking for FOIL. If I was able to go on the system and see someone else's documents and review them, then I would not have to burden the clerk or whoever the FOIL officer might be with that request. So but I think
I'm just not, I'm not convinced that this is going to save government resources and again, reduce the need for answering. I don't think it may not do that.
But it could.
I think it's best practice in terms of what other villages and towns do with respect to FOIL requests, because there's no reason to keep them secret or away from
No, I
other
understand that.
people. So it just, in terms of being able to set the system that answers FOIL requests to that setting, it seems like it's the responsible,
No, I understand that.
reasonable thing to do. So I think we should do it. But on another note, having started to ask a lot about FOILs and knocking on people's doors, there are people who are concerned that the village is not answering requests for information in a timely manner, or is not anxious to release documents that have to do with reports that are in progress or that affect village residents, that we need to do better in terms of meeting the obligation, which is a 5-day response to any request for information, followed by a 20 business days to produce
Sure.
that information, unless it's highly unusual, and then that must be put in writing to the person making the request along with the reason. And I
Right.
think we have to make an effort to answer those within a very strict timeframe that the law provides.
All
So I
right,
think
Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot. Could you come up and explain the amount of work and effort that goes into some of the FOIL requests that we receive at the police department? Please.
So we get FOIL requests from the village clerk's office that comes in that avenue, but then we also get it directly mailed to the PD. And it's usually for police records and/or body-worn camera footage, dash cam footage, radio transmissions. Some of them are easy. We can get them out same day. But the ones that take up a lot of time, Captain Wetter's time, are the ones that request the footage. He has to go in and redact the footage. He has to, if there's children in the video, he has to bubble them out. He has to, put that screen over their face so they're not subjected to.
Identifiable.
Yeah, unidentifiable. And then there's also, redacting reports as well. So It's the body cam, it's the dash cam. We also, 911 tapes I don't believe are subject to FOIL, but regular phone calls into the 0056 number are. Car-to-car transmissions sometimes get everything. We have to give them everything. But those are the ones that take the most time for us.
And what about the requests that somebody had on our Lexipol records? And the way that training was done, or the way we investigated?
I think it was when they foiled our rules and procedures, our old rules and
That's it.
procedures.
That's it.
They wanted everything and anything, and it was a 400-page document before we went to the software platform we're currently on.
So how long did it take to try and go through that?
So we initially, I think we denied it initially, or we needed more. We didn't deny it. We needed more time because it was old stuff. We had to go through everything to see what we had to redact, and that was, I think we asked for 120 days, and we gave them an estimated time of December by the end of the year, and that wasn't good enough for this person. Well, we did the best that we can. I mean, we had to redact procedures for investigations for certain sensitive things. Most of the stuff we could give them, but we had to go through it because at the time, our procedure and policy were mixed together. Now they're separated.
No, I appreciate it. All right,
Yep.
thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Anyway, the point I was just trying to make is some of these are very complicated and take a lot of time. And I believe that Village tries to answer these as quickly as possible, but as you just heard from the chief, sometimes there's just an enormous amount of work that they have to go through to get it to the point that they can release that.
Yes, but our only obligation, if it's a really voluminous request, is that we provide a date certain by which the person can rely on the fact that the information will be available by that date if we find that some request is out of the box or requires a lot of manpower
Right.
to produce. So I think we just have to comply as much as we can with the standard request that
Absolutely.
would take the 20 business days, and then
Absolutely.
be sure that the letter provides a date certain, and it sounds like, we can do that, but might have to,
No, I mean, and we get requests up in the building department for information about, applications or even just certificate of occupancies or building permits. And so there's an awful lot that comes through here. In fact, I wish Kathy were here to explain how much volume we get in foils. And I can assure you, everyone is trying to answer these as best they can. I mean, sometimes information is requested of people in the village government, and they don't always respond right away. So, she has to hound them to try and get the information that's requested. So I think people are working as hard as they can. Obviously, we can always do better. I agree with that. But again, it's very time-consuming when some of these foils come in that are quite elaborate and comprehensive, and it's not always something that can be turned around in 5 days. That's my point.
I think we just have to keep in mind, do we need more people appointed to do this, or do we need to streamline the process and just keep an open mind that we might have to look into those alternatives so that we meet the
Yeah.
legal obligation that we have to give people information that they need so that their rights aren't abridged by
Oh, no, exactly.
any
Yeah.
unnecessary delay.
Well,
But
I think-
I realize everyone's working very hard to.
And I think Next Request actually was brought on as a platform for the village to try and streamline the process. I think Next Request is one of the best FOIL platforms out there. So again, I believe everyone's working towards this goal, and it's unfortunate that some think that we're dragging our feet, because really, I don't think that's the case.
To me, this resolution could only help dispel or improve that, because it could reduce redundant requests. I know other municipalities that are on Next Request have this function enabled for sort of immediate public access for the status of requests and the responses that have been given to previous FOIL requests. So I feel like it's a technology-based tool that
Yeah.
could only make our lives easier.
Agreed. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Whereas the village board recognizes that lawyers advising public boards have a duty to the public trust and the government entity they represent. And whereas the board further recognizes that counsel assigned to village boards must remain free of unwaivable conflicts and the appearance of conflicts to ensure unbiased legal advice and maintain the confidence of the public in the process of deliberative decision-making on matters of public interest. And whereas the village board has the obligation to approve or disapprove appointments of counsel made to represent village boards by exercising their A or nay vote. Therefore, be it resolved that law firms appointed to represent village boards will remain free of conflicts of interest and potential conflicts and concerns brought to the village board's attention by any serving member of the village board, a trustee, or the mayor, will be discussed by the village board in public session or in executive sessions as provided by law before a confirmation vote is undertaken and in the event of a written complaint as detailed above. And be it further resolved that reports of conflict of interest or reports of interference with the board lawyer's duty of independent counsel to the boards will be considered by the board and appropriate corrective action taken so that the village board's operations remain free and fair. I make the motion.
Second?
Discussion. Again, I think we should be getting input from the land use boards. They've been left out of this equation completely. How would necessarily someone on the village board know that there was an issue with one of the land use board attorneys? Again, I think we have to get input from the land use board that is being served by that attorney.
I mean, this says, I think, if I'm reading this correctly, brought to the village board's attention by any serving member of a village board. Doesn't that
That's
allow
right.
them, give them a mechanism?
Yes, the mechanism would be anyone serving on the board, so they're the ones that are dealing with their counsel day in and day out. But it also gives us the obligation to bring any concerns to the full board's attention, and any of us are able to visit any of the land use boards just as observers or go on the village website and tune into any of the meetings. So if, you know, we could bring that, or the mayor could bring that to our attention, but the purpose of the resolution is just to create a forum and a procedure for an open discussion if that arises, because there's been a problem,
To
in my
what
opinion, in
extent
the
does
past.
this, I don't know, usurp or take over some of the responsibilities of the Board of Ethics? I mean, if there's a conflict of interest and somebody thinks an attorney is operating with a conflict, shouldn't that be reported to our ethics board? And wouldn't it be their responsibility to review that issue?
I don't think it would always rise to the level of an ethics violation as much as we're maintaining oversight and voting on hiring the lawyer for the board. So because we have the hiring power, the mayor has the appointment power, we have the hiring power, we do it together. We are a small village and conflicts do arise, or overreaching in terms of, you know, trying to avoid lawsuits or just taking action with the lawyer to the boards that are not in the best interest of the village necessarily, that we have to monitor that. That's one of the reasons I ran, and I think it's just a good procedure, and I don't think we should be afraid of instituting it. So I don't see why it's a problem to discuss,
I have no problem
other
with
than the
the
bar
board
having
being-
an objection.
Sorry to interrupt, excuse me. I have no problem with the board being made aware of any potential violation, as your resolution suggests. But the board attorneys are appointed for a length of time, or, correct? So if this were to happen in the middle, the board's now aware that there might be something going on, but they're just going to hold that in abeyance until the next term comes up for deciding whether to continue that attorney's relationship with the board. I mean, it seems to me if there's a problem and it comes to the board's attention, we would need to then act to remove that attorney, which has been done in some cases. While I've been on this board, a board has made the mayor has made a change in one of the board attorneys based on issues with that attorney. So I'm not really sure what you're getting at with this.
Well, changes have been made based on an analysis of how much litigation has come our way, which, you know, in certain instances with getting rid of an attorney, which is not, in my view, an appropriate
I don't-
reason to change an attorney for a board, because, you know, the tactic of suing, anyone can sue.
Oh, sure.
You know, anyone can bring a lawsuit, but I think the main concern should be that those people giving legal advice are giving legal advice that's just, regardless of, you know, whether we're going to be sued or not, that can't be a reason for letting an attorney go, and we can't let that persist. So we just have to monitor that kind of thing. We have to have open meetings if we're going to be considering letting someone go in that position, or replacing them with somebody else, or hiring them in the first place, and having closed doors meetings about it is not the best way to proceed.
Just
Because
Marcy,
it's just rife for, you know, problems, and why not monitor it since we're doing the hiring?
Trustee Burson, I'm absolutely, don't know what is being referred to when you say that an attorney was removed because they had too many lawsuits against that board. That is absolutely, I don't know where that came from, absolutely false. I have never made decisions based on that. And quite honestly, I find that quite offensive, because that is not, if the village needs to be in a lawsuit, the village will be in a lawsuit. I
Yeah,
have no
that's-
problem with that.
right.
So, but
That's
saying
the-
saying that I'm judging attorneys on if they don't have lawsuits with the village, that's absolutely false, absolutely
Well,
false.
that was put on the record
On what
at a
record?
planning board meeting in, you know, a few years ago. So that was
I
put
can't
on the-
speak to what someone on the planning board said.
Well, it was put
That
on the
is-
record that was the reason for a change, you know.
I don't know how that came up, because that is absolutely
The entire procedure of
false.
board deliberations, well, it was put on the record by one of the planning boards, you know,
I can't
that they
account
were
for
in
that.
meetings with it. Okay, so.
I can't account for that.
I'm just-
What I'm saying is, I, as the mayor, have never determined, again, the validity of an attorney based on how many lawsuits are brought against the village. Absolutely not.
Okay, well, then you shouldn't
Unequivocally
have any
false.
objection to this resolution, because that's
I do have an
exactly
objection to
what
it
you're
because I
saying
believe
you
it
want.
is weakening the power of appointment that is held by the mayor. So,
Not at all.
No,
You can
not at all.
appoint whomever you, in your judgment,
but this
thinks
is saying that,
best.
this is saying that then if you don't like them, you can dismiss them.
Not if I don't like them, or if Mr., you know, trustee Simeone doesn't like, it's not based on our personal feelings about anyone or whether we like anyone. It's just wanting
It
to have
says
the
an
information
appropriate
to
corrective
approve.
action taken, so the village board, that's what you're saying. Appropriate corrective action, what would that be?
If the deliberation that we had led to a feeling that an attorney had a conflict that was not waivable and they were not acting in the interest of the board, then we could discuss whether that attorney should be replaced with somebody who could guide the board.
Right.
But those decisions have been made, and not on grounds that are public or reasonable. And that's in the public record, in the meetings, you know, that those provisions were changed and not in public. So I'm just, I don't, the fact that we're arguing about it when you want the same, we want the same things, that this shouldn't be problematic.
Well, I think it's unnecessary. It's absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah.
There is no reason for
Well,
this at all.
We disagree on that.
Well,
I
we just disagree, I guess, because again, the mayor has sole power of appointment, and you've agreed to that, but this is restricting what I can and cannot do.
No, it's just saying we want the information beforehand. We want to know who we're hiring. We want to know if there are conflicts, and we want to know if there's a procedure of board deliberations that's changed to change an attorney, or something like avoiding litigation, which should not, you know, an attorney advising
And I
the
don't know where
board
you
should
got
not
that idea,
worry about
because
that.
again, I've told you unequivocally, I have never, ever made a decision about an
I
attorney.
got it based on public
based-
information that was shared with the
Well,
board.
I don't know
about
what public
had
information you're talking about,
happened.
because that is absolutely false, false,
Well,
false,
it's-
false.
Okay, it's in the record, and it was at a planning board meeting that I can, you know, refer everyone to, but it's not
had
necessary
nothing-
if we agree on,
It
you
had
know.
nothing to do with me. I wasn't in that planning board meeting. I don't know what you're referring to. I've never made a decision about an attorney based on how many times the village has had a lawsuit. Never. So anyway, all right.
So I would like to just weigh in and say I have a concern about the dividing line between your appointment powers and authority and our powers as a board, but I don't think this resolution usurps that. I think all it's saying at the end of the day is we have a group discussion either in public or in executive session, if that's more appropriate, given the facts and circumstances. We have all operate on the same facts, And we take basically a non-binding vote as part of advice to you about how, Mayor Manger, about how to consider, whether and how to consider a replacement. And then it would be up to you, it'd be up to you to ask for a vote to dismiss or to propose a replacement firm as part of your power of appointment.
And it's perfectly,
Think.
yes, no, and it's perfectly fine if, when I nominate or appoint someone, that the board then asks questions of that person. That's perfectly fine. That's the way it should operate. And you can do it when we, at the beginning of a meeting, we have the mayor's appointments. And if there's a question about an attorney, that would be the time to raise the question. And it can all be done in the open, so the public can all see that. I'm fine with doing that. I don't see why we need to have a specific resolution that is, again, I think, infringing on the power of appointment by the mayor. So anyway, that's all I can say. So we have do we have a motion, a second?
The only other thing I would say is I just object to some language in here, which is in the first therefore paragraph. It says, therefore be it resolved that law firms appointed to represent village boards will remain free. We can't really resolve that they will. I would just like to change the word will, and maybe say are expected and required to, because that's really all we can do. They are expected, I don't know, that may be a distinction without a difference. And council, do you think that matters, or would we leave the language as it is?
But Rob,
Understood.
I would say this is clearly understood. I mean,
Okay.
no
Okay.
one wants to have an attorney who's acting
Okay, it's fine.
in the conduct that an attorney must adhere to, that would then all of a sudden be having conflicts of interest. I mean,
Good, okay, it's just a word
Should remain.
clarity issue. We can leave it as it is.
So we're voting?
okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm voting no. Because, again, I feel like it's taking away some of the powers under 400. We'll go to number 9.
Number 9. Actually, number 9 was just introduced by me for discussion, so I don't know why it's on the agenda, but we can.
You sent it. I thought that meant that you wanted it on the agenda.
I sent it internally for discussion, but I don't mind having it on the agenda, and since we're all here, we could discuss it. So I'll just read it out. It says, whereas under New York Village Law, Section 4412, the Board of Trustees is the legislative body of Southampton Village and holds primary responsibility for its finances, governance, and administration, and whereas under New York Village Law, Section 4412, village trustees are charged with enacting, repealing, and amending rules and regulations necessary for the good governance of the village, and whereas the village board may take all measures and do all acts by local law not inconsistent with a general law which shall be deemed desirable for the good government of the village, and whereas the board may determine the rules of its procedures, and whereas the submission of proposed resolutions is one method by which the individual village board members exercise a duty, now be it therefore resolved that all proposed resolutions by any trustee or the mayor shall be duly added to the Board of Trustees agenda and shall not be excluded based on prior determinations to preclude their introduction based on legal analysis occurring outside of the board's public meetings or work sessions. I make the motion to introduce that
I'll second.
resolution.
Discussion. Again, I think that it's not a good practice for a village board member to be putting forward resolutions that are not legally sufficient. For example, if Trustee Stevenson said, I want to add a resolution that says, I want to nominate Joe Blow to be on the Architectural Review Board to fill this term, it's not a legal resolution because he does not have the power of appointment. Again, that rests with the mayor. So again, that would be a resolution that he may want to put on, but it's not going to be allowed because it's not allowed under state law. So again, if something's not legally sufficient, why do you think you want to put this on the agenda?
I think that when we're deliberating and putting laws on the agenda, we're all elected to represent people who voted for us, and we can make the judgment as to what resolution might be necessary to improve life in the village. And so it's not appropriate for one or two of us to decide alone that it's not legal or it's not necessary or it's not warranted, and then prevent any individual lawmaker from putting that resolution forward. Those discussions can be had in public, and then presumably 3 of us won't vote to approve a law that is clearly illegal. You know, I think we should have faith in our own collective, judgment, individual judgment on that, and we don't have to worry about it, but quashing resolutions or keeping them off the agenda is not the way to proceed in,
Even if they're
governing
not
village.
legal?
Well,
You think
who
it's good to
decides if, no, I don't.
pass something that's
I would
illegal?
never introduce personally something that I believe was illegal. I do a lot of research to try to determine that it's legal and desirable, but there can be a difference of opinion, but that doesn't allow any of us to quash each other's ideas, and it's good to discuss them and bring them forth, and I think we're making progress, so I think we should keep going with that.
Anyone else have any comments on this?
I'm still of the opinion that in order to have discussion on the resolution, it has to be seconded. So I think 2 people should have to concur to put any proposed resolution on the agenda, just because in order to discuss it, you need a second. So I would not be in favor of this as currently written, and I further also think that things need to be vetted for their legality before they're put onto the agenda, or else you just end up with potentially some resolutions that have to be discussed, have to be analyzed. It's up to the village attorney to have to give a reading onto whether it's legal or not. And if that could be determined ahead of time, why waste I think you really need to have 2 people, and it needs to be legally vetted before it becomes a resolution.
I think we passed, just in the last meeting, we passed a resolution removing the concurrence in order to put something on the agenda.
I'm just saying my
So
opinion.
I understand, but we already did that, and putting it on the agenda, of course, it has to be seconded. That's the point at which point one can determine whether it will be able to be voted on, but at least it gives the opportunity for us to discuss and share ideas and give our own opinions, and then at that point, we can decide whether we want to vote for it in the first place or second it in the first place, and then we can vote on it, and we have the power of voting no if it's not appropriate. But the whole idea is to be able to put something on the agenda so we can at least have a discussion.
The only thing I would add is just as a matter of not of resolution or even procedure, but just sort of good housekeeping. It makes the whole process easier if we can get proposed or draft resolutions in to the clerk and to council at least 3 days, maybe
Yes.
a week or so in advance, so that some of these questions of legality can be discussed beforehand instead of at the
Right.
last minute.
Of course.
I think that would allow also the more certain preparation of the agenda, of a full agenda. So I think it's not determinative of the way this resolution is, but it would be a part of the good housekeeping to get things in time.
Would you like to add something like that to this resolution?
No, you would restrict
I'm
it.
asking Mr. Coburn at the moment.
Yeah. I'd be open to it. I don't know if we're gonna, Willie, Trustee Bernstein, excuse me, you said you might not want to work on this tonight. Can we adjourn this and talk about this, or would you rather take a vote on this resolution tonight as proposed?
Oh, I wouldn't mind putting this one to bed tonight, so we don't have to introduce it for a 3rd time.
All
And we
right.
could someone could take up that
Yeah.
idea on the 72 hours. I'm
Okay.
a procrastinator.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready?
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Again, I can't, in good faith, put things on an agenda that are not legally sufficient. It makes no sense to me. All right, so we actually have to have a supplemental. So I will make the motion to add a supplemental. This is involving hires at Cooper's Beach that have to be done for the second half of the summer. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Coburn, you read the
I'm just
supplemental
trying to find
resolution, please. Here, I give it to you.
I got it. Thank
Okay.
you. Resolved, Mayor Manger appoints and requests a motion for the Board of Trustees to approve the hiring of the Coopers Beach personnel effective July 22nd, 2026. Booth attendants at $18.50 hourly. Joseph Salonetti, Riley Nichols. Beach attendants at $18 hourly. Axel Van Tricht. and Picnic Beach area attendance at $27 hourly. Thayer Schwartz. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. So now we'll go to, I think we have public comment. Do we have any member? Oh, Mr. Rung, I see your hand.
David Run, Pleasant Lane. As you all know, I believe in good government. Good government applies the principles of fairness, transparency, respect, and honesty to its every behavior. The village's assessed value system and the administration of the system violates every principle of good government. The wealthy residents are stealing from all the rest of us, and the 5 members of this board are enabling that theft. In my 2026 grievance, I provided a listing of 20 recently sold high-valued properties, and I asked to be treated the same way for the relationship of assessed value to the value of property. But of course, I was denied that fairness. I also filed a FOIL for the 7 grievances that involved that were considered by the grievance committee. That FOIL is number 26-17. Thanks to the efforts of the independent trustees, that FOIL response will be available, Resolution 7 tonight, to all members, to all residents and the press. If members of the board and the public actually do believe in fairness, they need to read these grievances and make their own assessment as to whether grievance filers were treated fairly. There are many things wrong with the village assessed value system. For example, grievance filers present their views, and then the hearing committee refuses to interact with them. No discussion, no negotiation, no appeal. They decide in secret and tell the filers, if you don't like it, sue us. I appreciate that the law allows those hearings to be in private, but good government isn't what you can do, it's what you should do. I also just don't understand why this administration chooses to impose as much agony on individuals as absolutely possible. You want that to be your legacy? Because I would tell you, if you just had 10 minutes of discussion between the grievance filers and the committees, you could resolve these issues, to the satisfaction of both parties. But that's not the method that for some reason you choose to do. Let's see. The problems in the system. Okay. Also, the assessor makes unsupervised decisions on the assessed value for change for improvements made to properties. The village committee is refusing. The village is refusing to tell residents the specifics of how assessed value changes are made when there are improvements. That is no transparency, and therefore not applying the principles of good government. And the board is completely clueless as to what the assessor is doing. The present grievance committee, finally, as the change is needed, the present grievance committee needs to be replaced by people who actually care about fairness. The problems in the system and the administration of the system are all easily fixed. The function needs the hands-on control and direction of an independent trustee. It can no longer be left to an unelected administrator. Ideally, that trustee would be Rob Coburn. Trustee Coburn is the liaison to the village administrator, and he filed a grievance in 2025 and used the same comparables that I did. He has a direct experience with the secret, shoddy treatment of the grievance filers. This treatment may have been one of the reasons that influenced him to run for office. This issue has great urgency. It needs to be addressed now so that the residents of lower valued properties who are being forced to pay a disproportionate share of the tax burden, they are being forced to subsidize the wealthy. But they need time to be able to prepare the grievances which will allow them to be moved towards fairness. And we need to provide our help, and the board needs to help them do this. There's much more I could say on this, but I have house guests, and I need to get home to grill the dinner. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Please come forward.
Hello, I'm Jeff Molesky from 121 Lee, and I had a different comment that I was going to actually share on behalf of our alliance this evening. Really acknowledging the collaborative effort that has been underway in terms of really trying to unpack and examine this acute problem that we're suffering from in the village that's really pressing on public safety. This is not about convenience. This is not about, oh my gosh, we want something more favorable to happen for Lee and it's going to affect Halsey. We've been invited in as part of former Len Zanotti. The office, I think, actually included our wonderful chief. It included Ryan from the VHB, and we've had 2 working sessions to really help problem solve. This was not any type of covert effort in terms of having secretive meetings. They were scheduled by the mayor's office. Karen scheduled these meetings. We worked hard in these meetings. We surveyed neighbors. We did an analysis, a quantitative analysis, where we actually identified what would be favorable and what people had the most energy for, and they really, really started to get specific in terms of the trade-offs. But in no way was this an effort to improve one street at the expense of any others. We're trying to be really holistic. And we can talk about 2029 challenges that we're going to have, but you know what? There are things that we can do within our village today instead of just saying there's other issues. Last year it was the US Open. Now we're worried about a bridge that's going to be repaired. It can't be that way. We have to operate as leaders, and we have to operate as true neighbors that are going to make a difference. And that's the work we've been doing for weeks on end. It's crazy to believe, I mean, we came to this meeting, it's crazy to believe that I feel like we're being set back in terms of how we're starting out. I feel like there's so much more detail here from past pilots, from the work that we did, that is going to inform you guys how you should act and put something out there to pilot beyond a 2-week pilot. Last year's pilot, yeah, it was a failure for many reasons. It wasn't properly communicated before the pilot and during the pilot. And of course the Halsey Neck people were upset. That's not in any way what we're looking to do. We're looking to do something systematically to improve people's lives and, quite frankly, improve the safety issue that we have on Lee Avenue. Lee Avenue is a 20-foot wide street. You cannot believe how dangerous it is on this street. That is a different street size than Halsey Neck. I'm not trying to say Halsey Neck should take it. What I'm trying to say is it can no longer just set on Lee Avenue. You guys, it's a disservice to the neighborhood. And we've asked you, we've been coming here for years. This is the 3rd year I know I've been involved, and I know people have been involved before that. We're asking you to do something and really act like our leaders. We know a number of you are. We've had a number of conversations, but I just feel like some of these shots that are out at us, like we're having private meetings and we're doing things in some secretive way, when it feels like a lot of people have been involved with this, feels incredibly disingenuous and wrong. When we're doing this on our free time, this is not how we really plan on spending our summers at all. And this is not about convenience or, oh my gosh, I want my life to be better. It's about public safety. And if you guys really need to understand that, come hang out with us on Lee Avenue any weekday evening. Come hang out with us and just watch what it's like. Watch how incredibly aggressive the people driving on our street are. We've analyzed this with the team, with the working team, with some of the issues. I wish Ryan would have been here because he's much more specific around where we landed. With what we're looking to do on Lee and Captains and Halsey, it would help keep traffic off Ox and going back up north to Hill. There's a law of diminishing returns. That's what we're getting to. It's going to dissuade people from traveling south below Hill and coming through that neighborhood. That's the solve. And we feel like we've done that work. So it's so mind-boggling that we are here almost starting over. I don't understand it. So I'm bringing that up to your attention because we believe in all of you. We know you guys all have great hearts, great minds, but for some reason there's this weird kind of confusion that just doesn't feel like we're coming together and advancing the agenda. And that's where we thought we were coming into this meeting tonight. And there's a number of people that I think are probably that are even on the Zoom that we're really hoping for you guys to get to the next step. So thank you, Mayor, for saying let's get another meeting on the table. But geez, to now come bring this and make it into some food fight, it feels like that's what you're starting. And we've done so much good work coming up until this point. We would ask you guys, please be our leaders and look at this critically and help us take action. It's about public safety. It really is. And I don't think you guys really understand that because you don't live on Lee. You don't live on Ox Pasture near Lee. You guys don't see that on how that narrow street is absorbing this amount of traffic, which is different than Halsey Neck and is very different than Hill Street. It's a very, very, very different avenue to say that we're okay with that and just to kind of look the other way. I wish this meeting would have been a different one. I wish we were going to really say thank you for the collaboration. Let's advance this. I don't know what happened tonight, but it just feels like we took one huge step backwards.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room would like to speak? Otherwise, I was going to go to Lauren.
William?
Or I was going to go to Zoom. Yeah. Yeah, please. Thank you.
He's coming in.
Okay. You're on, William.
Hey, thanks, everybody. I would like to concur with Jeff, appreciate the comments, and of course do appreciate everybody's attention to this matter. I wanted to point out that Section 9736 of the Village Code calls for planning standards to recognize that local streets should be wide enough for the traffic they are expected to carry. The current standard in the Village Planning Code is a minimum of 26 feet. Lee Avenue at its widest is 21 feet wide. So this is a fact and a situation on Lee that is unique in the village in regards to this analysis of the traffic situation. Other facts, Lee is designated by the village as a local street. Captains is designated by the village as a local street. Halsey is designated as a collector street. And Hill is designated as an arterial street. These are facts. This is the way the village was designed when the traffic was not the problem that it is today. And so to set the standard of, hey, well, Lee's got all the traffic, and to use a Trustee Coburn's term, Halsey or others will, quote, get screwed if we shift the traffic pattern away from a local street to a collector street. I think that's the wrong standard. I think that's a political angle. I think that's a self-involvement. I think this needs to be looked at from an analytical standpoint as to the way the village was designed and the way Lee Avenue was constructed at a time when there wasn't traffic. And now that we're the incumbent street with all the traffic, to suddenly suggest that by moving it to places where traffic was designed to flow is somehow unacceptable and is the basis for this whole analysis, which we're going to find out, of course, in 2 weeks is a giant food fight. So I would leave you with, I believe the board should address a circumstance in which the traffic burden on Lee is in the wrong place as per both the village street designations and the spirit of the planning code. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Is there anyone else on Zoom? Okay, anyone else here? Lauren? Okay.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, I respectfully request that any permanent traffic decisions that are made are based on objective data, sound engineering principles, and transparent public process. So the issue that we're facing today did not happen in a vacuum. It happened because in 2023, decisions were made to make right turn restrictions from Bishops, Corrigan, and Somerset onto Hill Street. To my knowledge, those restrictions were implemented without a pilot program, a supporting traffic study, and we certainly weren't invited to a fisticuffs here. Today, you are appropriately expressing concern about the potential impacts to Halsey Neck before making any changes. My question is, why wasn't that same level of analysis and caution applied to the 2023 restrictions that shifted traffic onto Lee Avenue? I want to know if the board can identify the traffic study, engineering analysis, or the pilot program that supported the March 31, 2023 restrictions. If there was none, what changed? Why should residents have the confidence that this process will be different? I also hope the board does not place neighboring residents in the position of having to decide which street should absorb more traffic. That is not a decision that neighbors should be asked to make among ourselves. It is the board's responsibility to make those decisions using objective engineering standards, adopted planning principles, and in the best interest of the village as a whole. So I understand that some of these questions may not be able to be answered this evening. If they can, I would appreciate a response. If not, I ask that the supporting documents be made available before the next meeting so that us and the other residents have an opportunity to review them. Specifically, I would like to request the functional classification of Halsey Neck Lane and Lee Avenue. If Halsey Neck Lane is considered a collector road, where is that designated document? I would like to know whether either Halsey Neck Lane or Lee Avenue has ever been designated an any emergency management evacuation or public safety plans, and whether the village has evaluated the environmental safety, quality of life impacts of diverting the traffic from one residential neighborhood to another. Finally, I ask that the board to explain the framework it is using. What objective engineering standards determine when one residential street should absorb more traffic than another? If similarly treated residential streets are being treated differently, what objective criteria justify that distinction? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room want to speak? Or anyone else on Zoom? Sage?
I don't have any music right now.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think we'll end public comment and we'll go to comments from board members, and we'll start with Trustee Bernstein.
Thanks, everyone, for being here and attending. It's, I guess, my first work session, and I understand that we normally sit around a table, but I'm happy that everybody here showed up and engaged in public comment, and that was a large part of why we put our candidacy forward, because we do want to have open discussion about things and work through some of the most difficult issues. And going around and knocking on people's doors and standing on streets like Lee Avenue did open my eyes, because depending on where you are in any village, town, city, you might not be aware of what others are experiencing. So I think that's why it's so good to speak to each other and show up and be here. And I really respect and appreciate that, and am very happy to be part of the process, even though sometimes we're dealing with difficult issues. So thanks to everybody for speaking up and having your voices heard.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Bernstein. We'll go to Trustee Coburn.
Thank you, Mayor Menger. Just give a shout out to some events over the weekend for the Southampton African American Museum. I had the pleasure, along with Trustee Bernstein, of attending a brunch on Sunday for an organization that is doing wonderful work in continuing to grow their museum and their programming. Wanted to mention a couple things on Cooper's Beach as a liaison to Cooper's Beach. First, most excitingly, the lifeguard team from Cooper's Beach won the regional lifeguard competition. Came in first in 5 of the 8 events and first overall. So wanted to congratulate the team on that. And then more functionally wanted to mention that we've installed a couple of changing stations for residents and guests and visitors. There's been a bit of a bottleneck in particularly the ladies' restroom, but also the men's room at times, with people using those facilities to change rather than to use the restroom. So we're going to try this on a trial basis and see how that works for maybe some more permanent changes down the road. I mentioned just briefly that I have reached out to the village planner. I'd like to get receiving a lot of questions from residents on the status of the historic district inventory report and potential expansion. And so I've asked to just get a sense of what is potential timing here. Is it 3 to 6 months before SHPO or others have finished their review? Is it 6 to 9 or 12 months before ARB takes up consideration of a finalized report? There's some other niceties involved, but I'd like to hopefully work with the village planner to have a presentation to us either at our work session in August or maybe at the regular meeting in August, so that the public can just get some expectations set about what the next steps are and what the timing is. And then I'll just refer again to the meeting that I initiated with Councilman Iacilli and Councilman Neely this morning at the town hall, and Trustee Simeone joined me. In addition to trying to create some immediate relief for traffic here in the village, anyone who drives around the region knows, as I stupidly did a couple weeks ago, to drop something off at the recycling center at 2:45, and I got in a conversation up there, and when I went through the Majors Path, North Sea Mecox Road, four-way intersection, there were 2 cars in each direction waiting to get through. When I came back 30 minutes later, I was car number 70 up by the tennis camp on Majors Path. Took me about 15 minutes just to get back to the stop sign. So the traffic impacts are everywhere, and the only long-term solutions for everyone, or for not just the village but the whole region, is to reduce the number of vehicles coming across the canal. The pressures are going to get worse because there are more houses, workforce, people who are local workers who live and own their houses in parts of the Northwest Woods and the Springs in East Hampton, who, when they sell, those houses are likely to sell to weekend and summer people and not to workforce people. So we're going to lose more local workers, but we won't lose the jobs. And we're going to therefore increase the number of vehicles that will continue to come across the canal every day. We can address this with workforce housing, but we can only build, pick a number, tens, dozens, maybe a couple hundred units in any reasonable period of time, and that takes time. What we can do is work on better use of the train right-of-way, creating possibly a transit center for carpooling and additional bus service, and also enhancing and communicating a carpool culture. There is, from the New York State Department of Transportation, there's something called a 511 service. It's on their website. And it allows people to self-identify, raise their hand and self-identify for carpooling for people who live and work near them in the same schedule. I think we need to put all of that on the table and have some real goals. Let's take, in 12 months, let's take 1,000 cars off the road, vehicles from crossing the canal, and in 24 months, let's take 3,000 vehicles off of the road from crossing the canal. So that's the way I'm thinking. It's going to take a regional effort to get that kind of work going, and I'll keep the board informed as to how that's going.
Thank you, Trustee Coburn. We'll go to Trustee Stevenson.
There's a lot of talk this evening about transparency, and that's the best way to go. I received the agenda for this meeting about 2 days ago. I saw that there was going to be discussion of traffic. Certainly wasn't aware that a actual prospective solution was going to be presented and expected to be voted on this evening. So when I suggested that other members of the community should be allowed to weigh in on this issue, if I don't know from 2 days ago that we're going to have a vote tonight about whether or not to enact changes, I would argue that most of the community did not know that as well. And I do think if you're going to suggest we need to have transparency and make it a community solution, that everybody knows about it and can weigh in on it, which is why I think it was a good idea for the mayor to suggest a community meeting devoted exclusively to this problem on August 5th. There were some questions regarding when the consultant spoke about what would happen if we put restrictions on Lee and Captains, and he said, oh, there'd be some traffic going over to the other streets. There was several mentions made about we need qualitative analysis. Well, some traffic going over the other streets I would not call qualitative analysis. I do believe that from the pilot program, we had some actually very specific analysis. Now, you can say the pilot program didn't last long enough time, et cetera, that people didn't know about it, the traffic patterns didn't settle in. But I know that the qualitative analysis from the pilot program was that all of it left Lee, because Lee had no turns at all allowed, and captains and went over to Halsey Neck. And that's why the people at Halsey Neck were understandably very concerned about it. There's some talk about what steps were taken, what analysis was made to the streets on the northern side of Hill Street back in 2023 when this project first got started. And I would argue that the initial step that got this whole thing started was the actual closure of Somerset with a barrier, which I thought at the time was not the right way to go about doing this. There was not a lot of community input, and the barrier was removed and came up with, well, the solution is to get no right turn. And then once there was no right turn on Somerset, all the people on Bishops and Corrigan said, well, we're getting all the traffic. And then there was a decision made. I will say that I saw at some point, and I can't I would not be able to put my finger on it, but at some traffic analysis from one of our consultants, the question was raised, did the no right turns on Somerset, Bishop, and Corrigan measurably increase the traffic on the southern side of the street? And that consultant, now you can argue with it yes or no, but that consultant said no, he didn't feel it made a significant increase. Personally, I think it probably did, but the actual quantitative study that, according to the consultant, was that it wasn't that big a difference. In any case, I've discussed this with members of this board to ad infinitum because it's a serious, serious problem, and I fully understand it. Trustee Coburn and I have said we should just get rid of all the restrictions and go back to the way it was, because that might be the fairest way of all. I had another discussion with Trustee Coburn, which resulted from during the U.S. Open when the chief felt that we had an emergency situation, and she actually closed the traffic and only allowed it to go down Halsey Neck. And I said, wow, maybe that's the answer. One day we send all the traffic down Halsey, one day we send all the traffic down Captain's, and one day we send all the traffic down Lee. You know, you still get a bad day, but instead of every day being bad, it's every third day. In any case. Share the burden.
Sharing the burden.
Share the burden.
So I think there are some other solutions besides maybe the 5 that the consultant raised today. It all does go back to 39. Whatever has been done on 39, if it affected it at all, it hasn't really helped that much. I think to really get 39 to be of significant help, you'd have to have a major, major program involving what they do closer to New York City, where you put cones on one side of the road in the morning and move the cones to the other side of the road to make more roads going in and more roads going out. That's obviously a huge job. The county, town, money, cops, cones. That's not something the village is going to be able to get done. But I think we're going to, I mean, you can't get people to work out here. You can't get people who want to, I mean, it's a major league problem. And the politicians above this level are got to address it, because it's going to boil over into a revolt. In any case, I'm rambling. I hear you. I hear all the people. It is really bad. And I agree with what you said about sharing the burden. Let's figure out some way to share the burden. I don't think one street should be great and everybody else has a problem. Let's figure out some way to make it somewhat equitable. And I'm for opening to any ideas. That's just the only reason I didn't want to go ahead with this tonight, was I felt everybody should be able to weigh in on what the next step is. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate your understanding. We've got to get this something done, and I'm all in on it. I'm all in on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stevenson, and I want to thank the chief for being here tonight to talk about, again, what her and her force are doing to try and alleviate some of the traffic issues that we have in the village, because it is not easy, and again, it's impossible to have a police officer on every single corner. We all understand that. But I did want to say thank you. Yeah,
I don't think Trustee Simeoni had a chance to speak.
did I not? I'm sorry. I missed.
I'm the last in line.
I apologize. I should have done that before Roy.
It's all right.
Sorry, it's my
It
fault.
was an oversight.
Yeah, so trustee Simeoni, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say that tonight we passed some very important legislation that has addressed the foil, and we need to do more work on the foil so that it's equitable and the information is shared with everyone, and that it is also processed in an equitable and very quick manner. I think it's very important that we make sure that our boards are properly represented with legal counsel that is not conflicted in any way, that they give the right advice to the boards, and that we should have some kind of oversight over that. And that the last resolution does reaffirm that we do have a right to put our thoughts on the agenda so that we can discuss and vote on it, and then make sure that we have an open forum in order to be able to express our ideas. Going back to the traffic, quite frankly, tonight I was ready to vote on it. I think we've talked about it long enough. However, it's not a bad idea to be able to have other people weigh in as well, but I thought it was important that anyway we have to find out more about the equipment that we need. So I went along with it, but it's time that we do make a decision, that we go forward, we try the solutions that we think that will work, and then take the next steps from there. I am also the liaison on the Senior Resource Committee. We're working very hard in putting together the RFP, which is the request for proposals in order for us to find the concierge that will be working with the village to connect with our senior population. We're close to be able to resolve that, and I think that very soon we'll be able to put out an advertisement and have people come forward. So I'm looking forward to that to be implemented as well, and I'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I apologize, trustee Simeoni. Again, I just want to go back to thank all of you for coming out tonight, and look forward to having you back on the 5th. And this is not an easy situation, as I'm sure you all understand, and certainly, it's not something that is only happening in the village of Southampton. I mean, I've gone to North Sea, and you sit in traffic for a long, long time trying to get to or from certain parts on the North Shore there as well. It doesn't help that they also decided to put in a sidewalk on Noyak Road, which has again added a lot of inconvenience to people going towards North Haven. But on a lighter note, I wanted to let everybody know that at Cooper's Beach this Saturday, July 25th at 3 p.m., there will be a hot dog contest, a hot dog eating contest. And certainly want to welcome anybody who wants to participate in that event. Come on, I think you guys want to go.
I think it's liaison, trustee Cole.
There you go.
And the one.
Anyway, we look forward to welcoming anybody that wants to come down to Cooper's Beach for a little fun at 3 o'clock on Saturday to have the hot dog eating contest. And with that, I will say goodnight and thank you all very much. We'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Village Board of Trustees. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much and good night. Thank you, Sage. We discussed it before. There is nothing else.